Alright, hello guys. I wanted to make a quick video on sort of walking through the first 10 levels of OverTheWire, which is essentially a website that helps pen testers or hackers um, sort of get introduced and get some practice with using the command line, or at least Bandit, the war game that I'll be going over. But this really applies to really anybody who's like within the tech field doing a lot of the technical things. So if you're interested in cloud computing, you would have to be good with, or not good, but familiar with this if you're working with EC2 instances on AWS, or if you're doing research on MIT's super computer. Yeah, and so same thing if you're a developer, if you're coding, this is an excellent thing to have in your back pocket to have experience with. Just an incredibly powerful skill, and very rewarding as well. So yeah, just yeah, this video really is good for anybody who's starting. And then also, if you're someone like me who uses this as sort of like a refresher every like year-ish, I would say, because this sort of covers a lot of commands that you often don't use day to day, but they're good to know in case the situation arises that you do need to use that command. So yeah, so this is sort of going on the assumption that you know how to set up SSH and you know how to connect and you know um, the basic commands. Really, if you don't get anything out of this video, just practice using cd and ls. Cd is a command that allows you to change directories, right? And then ls allows you to list the files, folders, whatever that is in a given folder or directory, right? And so just again, ls will print out the contents of a folder, right? It won't print out the contents of the actual file, but it'll print out the contents of whatever's in the folder, right? And then cd will let you change the current directory that you're in, right? And those two commands are extremely, I mean, they'll get you far, right? And so, yeah, just if anything, just practice those if you are absolutely new to this. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and dive into things after I change the song. So yeah, we're gonna start on level 0, and so just gonna go ahead and connect to, and yeah, so OverTheWire. Just to quickly preface on how this works is you start off as being Bandit 0, that is a user that you start off as, and you are able to connect to a server as Bandit 0, and you essentially are looking for the password for the next user. So if I'm Bandit 0, I'm looking for the password of Bandit 1, right? And so once I log in as Bandit 1, then I look for the password for Bandit 2. I log out as Bandit 1. I mean, I'll just show you, but pretty much each of these levels give you sort of like a description or like a note or like a hint as to where to find the actual password. And then it also gives you a list of recommendations in terms of what tools you may need to actually solve the actual challenge themselves. But yeah, so I'll just go ahead and get started. So first one, they give us the port, the host, same thing with the username and password. So I'll go ahead and connect to that server using SSH. So Bandit 0. So specify the port. And then I will specify the password. And then I will clean up my workspace. And yeah, so we logged in successfully, so we can move on to the next one, which is still level 0, but we pretty much, I'm just gonna speed through these instructions, because yeah, the whole point of this video is sort of like me explaining like my approach to each of these. It's not really breaking down and walking you, like holding your hand in terms of how to actually do these, but yeah, so pretty much you just need to read the first sentence saying that it's in a file called readme. So we see the file right there. Let's go ahead and print out the contents of that file. None of this matters. Only thing that matters is the password. And so just like that, we have the password for bandit 1. So we can log out of bandit 0 and log in as bandit 1. And so use a password that we just found, and then also clear workspace, and then let's read the next hint. So the password for the next level is stored in a file called dash. And so what they're trying to do here is they're trying and have you print the contents of a file called dash, which will give you an error, because whenever you try and pass in this as, whenever you try and do this, cat is going to think that you're trying to specify an actual argument rather than a file, if that makes sense. So it's going to just stall out. And so what you need to actually do is tell it that it's an actual file itself. So moving forward, log out, and then we log in as bandit 2 with the password we just found. Clear workspace, and then so now it's saying that the password is in a file called spaces in this file name, which they're trying to trick you again, because if you try and print out the contents of this like so, cat is going to think that these are 4 separate files, and so it's going to give you an error. And so the correct way of doing this is doing cat, and then you encapsulate the or you wrap the name of the file using quotation marks. And so yep, log out, log in as bandit 3. So it says that it is in a hidden file within the in here directory. So we know the directory is here. So let's go ahead and change our current directory. And if we do ls, it's not going to work. So what you need to do is you need to specify that we want to see all of the files, including hidden files. So that is the file we are looking for. So let's go ahead and print out the contents of it and log out. Moving on to bandit 4. Next clue. So so pretty much what it's saying here is that the file is in the only human readable file within the in here directory. So let's go ahead and change to the in here directory. And you're likely going to need to pause a lot, because I'm not trying to make this video be 30 minutes long. So I'm just going to go through it. If you need to pause the video to see why I'm switching or just why I'm doing the stuff that I'm doing, feel free to do so. So we have 10 different files, and so the bad way of doing it is to print out the contents of each file until you get a human readable file. The correct way of doing it is by checking the file type of all of the files within the in here directory. And so we see that file 00 is some sort of subkey. All of the other ones except for file 7 are data files. So this is our clear winner. Yeah, so next clue. So once again, the password is in a file somewhere within the in here directory, and then it gives us a list of properties that correspond to the file that has the password. Human readable 1033 bytes of in terms of size, and then it is not an executable file. And so the way that I looked into this is that human readable can be many things. It can be a PDF, it could be a text file, it could be a Word file, it could be a doc, it could be, there's just several types. And so I sort of put that to the side and more so focused on things that I can specify, such as a specific size of a file, and then a file that is not an executable file. And so I looked at sort of these commands, and the one that I found to be the most suitable was the find command. And if you're ever not familiar with just any of these commands, something that you can do is use the man pages for a given command. So if I do man followed by just any of these commands, it'll give me the full documentation for that command. Or alternatively, you can just use find -- help, which will give you a summarized version. And so going through the find documentation, I find that you can specify size right here. And so G stands for gigabyte, megabyte, kilobyte, and then this is something that you need to look into, but byte is not B, it's actually C. And so we do find, and then again, we know that it's in the in here directory. So let's go ahead and find that first. Yep, right there. So let's go ahead and change. Well, I mean, I won't do it this time, but what we can do is we can do find, and we specify the location that we want to look into. Specify the size of the file that we're interested in. So 1033 bytes, which is a C. And then we specify that it is not an executable. And so the reason I chose not to add this like within my command is that it adds a lot. And so if we can get the solution by just using these two, then that's great. Otherwise, then we do the extra work. But thankfully, this gives us one result. And so, yep. Moving on to Bandit 6. And so once again, we would be using the find command to specify these certain properties, right? The owner, which is a user, and then specify a group that has access to this file, and then specify the actual size of the file. But in this challenge or this level, it's not in the in here folder. It just says that it's somewhere on the actual server itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to search for everything, or we're going to search through everything to see if we can find a file that matches these properties. And so this one is pretty straightforward in terms of like the arguments. So let's do size 33, and then remember that bytes is a C. And then user would be bandit7. Group would be bandit6. And all of the results are going to be a bit, or it's going to be a bit messy, because you're going to see that all of them pretty much say permission denied, permission denied, permission denied. And so you kind of have to pay attention to all of them, because one of them is actually it's the solution. So if you zoom out, you see that one of these actually isn't giving you a permission denied. And it's not this one, because this one is just wrapping around, but it's actually this one right here, right? And so, because that one doesn't have the it doesn't have the permission denied after. So yeah, so that's our file that we're interested in. Okay, moving on to bandit7. This music. So yeah, level 7. Let's see. So we're looking for, so the password is going to be next to the word millionth in the file data.txt. So for this one, I chose to use grep, which the way that I like the documentation for this, because it gives you a nice little example at the top right here, where you can see that you call the grep command and then the option followed by the file. So in the example that they give, they call grep and they're searching for, or they specify the tac I, which pretty much means to ignore the case, like uppercase, lowercase. So they're looking for hello world within these two files. So we can sort of match our challenge to around that example. So if we do grep million, what is it, millionth, followed by the name of the file, which I didn't even check if it's here, but yeah, so it is here. Which I'm not even sure. So let me just check to see what the inside of that file looks like. Yeah, so if you try and find it manually, that's how it's gonna go. So let's do, Jesus. Let's do grep millionth and then data.txt. And yep, that gives us exactly what we're looking for. It is next to the word millionth. Moving on to bandit8. Oh. Accidentally mess it up, but we're good. So logged in as bandit8. So the password for the next level is stored in the file data.txt once again, and it is in the only line of text that occurs only once. Okay, so I guess first things first, let's locate that file. So there it is. And so this is a great problem because you start to get into sort of like the complexity of how the command line, or how complex some of this stuff can get, but it's very simple once you actually once you actually get some practice, because if this was like my first time doing it, then there's no way I would be able to do this off the top of my head. But we start off by let's just go ahead and check out the data.txt file. So we can see that it's, yeah, just a bunch of strings, right? But we need to find the one that is unique, right? Because all of these apparently occur more than once. Yeah, so we look through the tools that it recommends or commands that it recommends. And so there might be an easier way to do this, but this was my approach. So I don't know what the string command does, but I'm assuming that it cleans up the file so that it removes any spaces or like null characters that may be within the file. And so it prints out each string within a separate line. And so because we have that, right, that's what this outputs, the strings data.txt, we can direct that output into another command, right? So pretty much we send the output of this command into another command, right? And just looking through these tools, the one that I chose to use next is sort. So the way that it works is it'll print out each of the strings within the data.txt, but that output will get sent to the sort command, and the sort command will sort all of those strings, which you can see here, right? And so, yeah. And so next, now that we have all of that, we can send this output to then use the unique command, which, so I went through the documentation and found unique --help and found, I tried this first, the -count, to sort of put a number next to how many times each string occurs. And then another one that, or the one that I ended up working was the -u, obviously, because it prints out the only unique lines. But I'll show you what both of them output. So this is what we had, right? And so then we pipe that output into unique. So unique -c, and this will give a counter to each string in terms of how many times it occurred. So yeah, so you can cheese it by just scrolling and looking through the actual list and see that there's this one that only occurs once. But like I said, the best way of solving it is, rather than using -c to count all of the occurrences of each string, is that you use -u. And so that'll return the only unique string. So yeah. Moving on to Bandit 9. So the password for the next level is stored in the file data.txt once again. And let me log in. Data.txt in one of the few human readable strings preceded by several equal characters. And so earlier there was a challenge that mentioned human readable as a property, which I chose to skip. But for this one, we won't skip it because this one specifically says strings. So we know what we're looking for, right? And so we can start off with that. So first step would be to locate the data file, which again, same place. And then we use the strings command, same as last time. So if we try and just check out the data.txt file, you can see that it's a mess, right? But if we do strings data.txt, yeah, and you can kind of cheese this problem because you're able to scroll through the outputs and find which one is very likely the solution, which is this one. But the better way of doing it is by whenever you get that list of strings, you can just grep for a word that contains equal signs. And so there it is. And so, yep, moving on to our last challenge, which is extremely easy. So we're looking to complete level 10 so we can move on to level 11, but this video is only about levels 0 through 10. So yeah, so the password is stored once again in data.txt, which contains base64 encoded data. So let's just find the file. Okay, so if we try and print out the contents of data.txt, you can see what they mean about the data being encoded, right? And so we need to figure out how to decode this data, right? Unfortunately, they told us what the data was encoded in, which is base64. So we need to figure out how to decode this data from base64. And so from the list of commands that they give you as a hint, the obvious one is base64, right? And I'd never used base64, but you can just look at the documentation, right, for base64. So let's look at base64 -- help to see if there's something to help us decode our data, which it is just -d. So once again, if we print out data.txt, we get the encoded string, but if we pipe that string to then to the base64 decoder, it'll then give us the decoded password or file, I guess. But just to make sure that this password is correct, let's log into bandit11. And just like that, that is it. So that is levels 0 through 11. I may make a video on levels 11 through 20. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The only thing that I really recommend for like this entire video is you just have to mess around with the commands, right? Read through the documentation. If you don't know how to do something, ask Google. So like if you don't know how to change a folder, go to a specific folder, search within a folder, print out the documents, or etc., etc. Just Google for it, but don't Google for the answer, if that makes sense. Like don't just copy and paste like the actual problem that you're given. Try and think of a way to ask it, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I have. So yeah, see ya.